The United States economy added 177,000 jobs in April. This is up from 145, I believe, was the 135 projected. That led to a significantly good day on Wall Street. The traders seem to like that a lot, which is not really a surprise, considering how volatile the stock market has been in the past couple of weeks with all the trade war talk. This actually led to a positive economic outlook for the Trump administration. So we're going to talk about that today. We have new court audio from 2020 regarding the wife of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He's said to have hit her repeatedly. This shouldn't really come as a significant surprise, considering the allegations that he's been violent in the past. There were multiple times that she was trying to get a court order, restraining order from him. So we'll discuss that. There was an attack at the Virginia Department of Corrections. I'm not sure which actual installation it was, but 3 corrections officers were stabbed by MS-13 gang members. So this actually seems to be, this is a new breaking story too. Bill Maloney was reporting it, so we'll get into that. Democrats are starting to pull out of the impeachment resolution, showing that it's not actually popular among all Democrats to continuously try to obstruct and create issues. So we'll get into that. The HHS recommends therapy, not sex change, to treat gender dysphoria. So that's a positive, I guess, for if you have a realistic opinion about trans people. So we'll talk about that. Then there's some information about trans militants in Portland. Be Trans Throw Hands. They're an activist group, and they're talking about teaching children how to fight in order to defend themselves if they're trans. And then we'll talk about that. We'll discuss Antifa agitators in our local area here in Maryland. There have been assaults for the May Day protest because apparently it's that has something to do with being trans, I guess. And then we've got the ADF has been classified as a right-wing extremist group in the German intelligence agency says. And that speaks to the way that the left is treating right-wing groups across Europe. So we'll get into that. And then if we have time, a New Jersey judge has moved Mahmoud Khalil's deportation out of immigration court and into federal court, and we'll get into why that actually matters. But first, go buy coffee. Go to castbrew.com. You can buy some of our coffee. You can get Ian's Graphene Dream is still available. It's the big seller. Everybody knows that Ian's Graphene Dream is easy on your stomach, and Ian is going to buy a Lamborghini with all the proceeds from that. You can get the last iteration of Alex Stein's Primetime Grind. I don't think they're making any more. There will be another Alex Stein blend if you're an Alex Stein fan. Or you can go get 2 Weeks Till Christmas, which is a very nice gingerbread coffee. It's very, very pleasant. So head on over there to get some Cast Brew. But smash the like button. Share the show with your friends, and we're going to get into it right now. Joining us tonight to talk about this and a whole lot more is Cliff Maloney. How you doing?
I'm great. Good to be here, guys. Cliff Maloney, CEO at Citizens Alliance, founder at the PA Chase. Knock a lot of doors out there to crush the rhinos, beat the commies, and I'm looking to Dozier State. So get involved. Follow me on X at Maloney. Appreciate y'all having me.
Awesome. And we've also got Courtney Knill here.
Hi, this is Courtney Knill. I am running for Charlestown City Council in Jefferson County, West Virginia. I'm also a creator over on X with political and health content, and that's at Courtney Knill on X.
Awesome. Moonlord.
Hey, buddy. I'm here just to talk about magic. So you want me to go deeper, Phil?
Not right now. We'll get into that.
I'm Ian Crossland. I'll give you an outro at the end of the show. I'll tell you about what I've been up to. But Libby, tell me.
Awesome.
I'm Libby Emmons. I'm here from the Postmillennial and HumanEvents.com. Glad to be on the show tonight with y'all.
Awesome. So let's get into it. CNN reports the U.S. economy added a stronger than expected 177,000 jobs in April. America's long resilient job market continues to defy expectations even in the wake of swirling uncertainty. The U.S. economy added a surprisingly strong 177,000 jobs in April, a slight slowdown from March's downwardly revised 185,000 gain, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics data released Friday. April's gain was stronger than the average pace of monthly job growth in the 3 prior months. Meanwhile, the unemployment rate was unchanged at 4.2, a historically low level. Economists polled at data firm FactSet were expecting the economy to have added just 135,000 jobs last month, and that unemployment rate held at 4.2%. So it's my sense that the jobs report is something that is positive for the economy overall, but the uncertainty's still there. Does anyone have any opinion on the economy now? I mean, I'm not an economist, but I think that Serge is an economist. I think that the jobs report is a tangible, whereas the stock market really doesn't affect people the same way that having low unemployment does. What do you think, Cliff?
Yeah, I'd say this. I think that you've got different indicators that obviously the political arena is going to look to. This is one that the Democrats will be mad about. Republicans will praise it. And I think any realist would look at it and say, okay, I'm going to praise it because it's good. We want more jobs. But to me, it's going to come down to what's the impact of the tariffs? What's the impact of the spending bills towards the end of this year? Do we actually cut the spending that DOJ has, showed us all this waste, fraud, and abuse? But I think this is the first step, is to track some of these smaller things, because this is going to dictate 2026, right? When you're looking at this midterm election, I mean, these are the small numbers, but I think it's going to build towards this idea of, well, we actually going to cut spending. We're actually going to do what the Republicans said they would do. And I think the tariffs, to me, it's the big question. But I think seeing these numbers, you're going to see the right screaming, this is great. You're going to see the left saying, hey, oops, here's actually what's wrong. But I think it's a very good thing to see. And, obviously we'd love to see more jobs.
It's business as usual as far as you're concerned.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, the White House is super happy about it. They sent out this whole thing with the details. So there were, as you said, 177,000 new jobs, which they said was smashing expectations. This included private education and health services, 70,000 new jobs, transportation and warehousing, which I thought was interesting, 29,000, leisure and hospitality, plus 24,000, professional and business services, plus 17,000, and financial activities, 14,000. So all of those people that were saying that everything Trump was doing was going to tank the economy and get everyone fired right away, it looks like they were wrong. Also, all of the people who are saying that, removing illegal immigrants was going to be bad for the American people, like, there's still jobs. That's not so bad. And the stock market has responded. I think it was up, what does the Wall Street Journal says, 1.3% on the NASDAQ, and the S&P was 1.5. So, I think that things are looking okay. Unemployment also had held steady at 4.2%. It's really, though, as we know, right, like the economy, all of these numbers come out. The White House says things, Democrats say things, everybody has their projections, but it's really about how you feel when you're going around in the world. It's about, like, do you feel good when you have $100 in your pocket, or do you feel like you are losing money? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you feel like you can afford your life or not?
I don't get the sense that the average person feels like the economy is doing really well. And I think that the economy is one of those things, if you get enough people that are kind of like, apprehensive about where the country's heading, that's going to affect the economy, even if, we've got really high or full employment or unemployment is really low or whatever. Do you guys get the sense that there is a positive notion towards the economy or the economic situation in the U.S., or do you think that the tariffs have scared people so much that they're expecting negative things too much, and that it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy?
Well, I think people can get a little bit spooked when they hear things like the tariffs that we've just been discussing. And once people get through that, once they're like, okay, all right, maybe it's not going to be the end of the world that we have some tariffs going on, I think people will look at their grocery prices, and they'll look at what's affecting their day-to-day life, sometimes more than numbers coming in and things like that, just the average person.
So I don't know a whole lot about the if tariffs are going to affect like grocery prices. It's my sense that they're not, but I don't know. Does anyone have any information about that? Libby, do you know any more about, like, do you think they're going to actually affect the grocery? Because I think you're right, Courtney. I think if people feel like they're going to the grocery store, because that's the most regular purchase that most people do, that and gas. And if they're going to the grocery store and they don't feel like they're getting killed, I think that things like Temu being more expensive on Amazon, or Temu is different than Amazon, but things that you're buying from Amazon being more expensive will have less impact if you're going to the grocery store and you're not getting crushed, or you don't feel like you're getting crushed. Does anyone else have
I think the White House has done a really good job of messaging in terms of letting people know that buying little cheap pieces of crap off Temu or Amazon, where when you buy stuff on Amazon at this point, like I was looking for a thing the other day for my cat, like just a dumb thing for my cat, put the litter box in so I don't have to look at it. Anyway, people with cats, what I'm talking about. But it was very hard to find one that wasn't just made in China, that I didn't know when it was ever going to show up or if it was going to be like the picture said it was. And I'm constantly, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, I'm constantly looking for like, was this made in the US? Is this going to be decent quality? Like I have this situation with printers. How many printers have I bought in the past like 3 or 4 years?
I cannot get a printer
it's
to
like,
work.
I can't get a print. Right. Right. It's like it just one little aspect of it just stops working. And what I wouldn't give for like the toaster my grandma had in the 80s. You know what I mean? Like stuff.
You don't want your toaster connected to Wi-Fi?
I don't want that. I don't want the talking fridge. I don't want any of these things. But I do want stuff that works and stuff that lasts.
Yeah.
And so like, and I keep hearing, like I was listening to this podcast the other day. It was on Honestly. I don't know if you guys listen to Barry Weiss's podcast ever. She's kind of interesting. But you had two people with contrasting views, Batia Ungar-Sargon, who I think is really an interesting
She's
thinker.
very, very much a cheerleader for the administration.
She's very much a cheerleader for the administration, but she's also kind of a socialist, and she lives in Brooklyn.
She's a surprising cheerleader for the administration.
She's really smart, right?
Yeah, I definitely.
But anyway, she was making the argument that it's important to bring home manufacturing jobs, even if factories are going to have AI components and all of this stuff, and that Americans can do these jobs. And then you had Brianna Wu, who's like this trans leftist who's also on the show. And Brianna was talking about how Americans are just not smart enough to do the kind of jobs that they're doing in China. And
Brianna has some bad takes. And she's had some bad takes.
All around.
Yeah.
But there they were on the episode. And like I was catching up on a lot of podcasts at once. Anyways, but I think that that's an interesting place to be for Americans. Do we want these jobs? Can we do these jobs? Can we produce quality merchandise? Like when Henry Ford, whatever you want to think about Henry Ford, when Henry Ford started his factory, like one thing he wanted his workers to be able to buy a Ford.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I do think that it's an interesting question. Would Americans pay more money for things that are not so disposable? You hear people talk about, consumerism and constantly upgrading, and when something breaks, you just go buy another one because things are so cheap now. Do you guys get the sense that people would buy or are comfortable with buying higher quality and paying more money?
No.
Would you pay $75 for a toaster if you knew that was the last toaster you'd ever have to buy?
Oh yes, I would.
I said no because I saw a company did that experiment. They were like, it's going to cost us, I think, 2.5 times more if we do it out of China. So they put it on their website, buy it from China for $350 or from America or whatever it was for $790.
What was it?
0 people bought the American thing. I'm trying to look it up right now. I'll look at it.
That's because the other thing was available at a cheaper price.
Yeah, and the reason I asked,
the idea is that the $75 toaster is available and it's a good quality toaster and it's made in America, or you could get a $90 toaster that's crap and made in China. That's the idea of these tariffs, is from what I understand.
Because personally, I will go with something that I know is going to last if I have the option. And I'll pay a little extra for something that I know that I'm going to have in 2, 3, 5 years. Like I've got my leather bag here. It wasn't cheap, but I know that thing's going to last just as long as I'm not, don't abuse it. It'll probably last for the rest of my life.
Well, and part of it too is when you know that things fall apart. We have a situation now where it doesn't matter what you pay for something, it's crap. Right? Like,
yes.
There is no quality.
There is no quality option. Like, I could pay $500 for a printer and it's going to die in a year and just stop working anyway. I could pay like $1,000 for a dress and the hems aren't finished and it has no lining. Like, why?
Yeah.
Why? Like, it used to be that if you were going to pay, you feel me on the dress, right?
Yeah.
It used to be if you were going to like buy a piece of designer clothing, this was a classic item. It was going to last you 20, 30 years. You were going to be able to sell it at the consignment shop for good money as well.
Yep.
Like good quality pieces. Now, if you buy a designer item, it's just as crappy as whatever you bought at H&M. It just has a different label.
Yeah, that's where I think we're seeing a big shift is in the fashion space. And I think a lot of the younger generations are more focused on sustainability and even more focused on cottons, things like that, better materials.
I think you're right. Like, but I'm less versed in fashion, but I know that like if I am going to go buy a tool, I'm not going to go to Harbor Freight. Right, I'm going to go buy a DeWalt, or I'm going to go buy, a good a Craftsman, a good quality tool that I know that I can, bring back to the manufacturer and be like, yo, this broke if something breaks on it. But you go to Harbor Freight, you're getting what you pay for. Now, I know there are people that love Harbor Freight stuff, love Harbor Freight because they love that cheap stuff, but you can't deny that the quality is not the same. And so I think that it does go beyond just fashion and stuff.
Well, I think people are a lot simpler than politicians or these economists make them out to be. It's like consumer choice, right? If they have options, they're going to look, they're going to see, like you said, if it's provided, maybe the study shows they don't go that way. But I think right now what you're having, the argument from America First folks is, look, if we can make this an equal playing field, if we can get China to have to not, be able to compete with a price that's a third the cost, then there will be this opportunity for these products to come in. Here's the problem. Politically, you only have a year.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyone that ever tries to do this, you have 1 year that you have to have not just the changes made, but then the products have to start coming in. But most importantly, the voters have to feel the change. Right. When we talk about these numbers that come out of the White House, when we talk about all these high level things, I just think at the end of the day, when people walk into the voting booth, and by the way, the reason I'm always bringing it back to the voting booth is, that's why these politicians are making the decisions they're making, right? As they're trying to figure that out. But for them to get these changes in place in time, we're talking about these changes have to be done by the end of this year. And then you've got to have products start coming in, and they've got to start feeling that by the summer of 2026. It's going to be quick. But to me, I just think people, I'm not calling them stupid. I just think that most normal people, they're trying to pay their mortgage, put food on the table.
Yeah.
What are the options? And I think a lot of them don't trust right now this idea that, well, there is a quality product. Because I'm 33 years old. There aren't a lot of quality products that I've seen in my lifetime. It's all cheap garbage.
All crap.
Yeah.
All of it. And it all breaks. And then it all just falls apart. And then you're just like, I worked really hard. I got paid. I spent my money on this. And now it's in the gutter.
Yeah, and I think Americans are genuinely pissed off about that situation.
It's so infuriating, right? It's so.
I think it's one of those things where like people don't realize they are until like something breaks, and then they realize, this is frustrating, and then it goes away. But then when it's something that kind of stays in the back of their mind, but they don't really think about
Well, they
it.
ordered on Amazon. It's there in 2 hours.
Yeah.
It's the same.
Well, and now there's
rinse,
the new
wash,
thing
repeat.
where it's like hard to return stuff too. It's hard to they make it like increasingly harder to return things.
I'm not sure what the deal is with Amazon lately, but I've had like 3 orders that I've ordered in the past like 3 weeks and have issues getting to my house.
Last year, I bought a pair of shoes for my son, and instead of the shoes I ordered, it was a pair of used Reeboks with gum on the bottom.
Oh my
It
gosh.
showed up in the box, and I was so grossed out and horrified. Yeah, and I couldn't get any response, and I think I had to like take to Twitter to be like,
Hey,
look
fix
at
this.
this.
Do you guys actually take the time to return things? If we're talking like something that's under $50?
I usually
depends on what it
do,
is.
but they'll just give me the money. They'll just be like, fine, just keep it and keep the thing. If I like it broke or if it's any kind of food product, they don't want it back. So if they send you the wrong food product, you just tell them and they'll refund you on the fly. I don't abuse it, but sometimes they'll literally, like you said, Phil, I'll get like 3 orders in a row will be wrong every once in a while. I got a wave of it like 2 months ago. I don't know if you guys did. 2 months ago,
I just think we have it so good and don't realize it, because I think the majority of people, and I get it, some people are having tough times, but the majority of people, you order like a shirt for $30 and it comes in and it's the wrong size. Are you really going through the process of getting the return label, sending it back? I just think a lot of people, they're not doing that.
Well, that's why they make it harder to return it, because they know that if it's hard to return, most people are just going to eat that $30. But the thing is, there's 2 sides of it, right? So if you don't like shopping on Amazon and getting garbage delivered to your house that's wrong, and then just eating the $30, and you want to go to the store and try and buy something there, you can't find the thing at the store.
Right.
You know, like it's hard to like just go buy something at the store that is the thing you need. So a lot of times you end up having to buy it. You know, you'll go to like Walmart or whatever, and instead of like 5 decent options, there's 1 option that sucks.
Talk about having a good, like even just the idea of the store. Like there's a store called The Store that we are just so used to.
I like the store.
available.
I want to go to the store.
What is the store?
I want to go to the mall. I
I
want to
mean,
buy
it is-
stuff at the mall.
It is. I do like.
too.
I really do miss like having the ability to go and like pick something up if I need it. Like Amazon's cool and stuff, but a lot of times I'm like, one of the things that I've been waiting on is just red Loctite. Why am I waiting on red Loctite? Why don't I go to Lowe's? Well, because it's on Amazon and I just hit the button and say, okay, it should be here tomorrow. Well, guess what? Now I've been waiting a week and a half for my damn red Loctite, you know? So I do miss the fact that you would just be like, oh, I want to go to the store to get this, or I need this, and I'll go to the mall and pick it up.
I had a fun experience on Monday. I was at the White House for the Eagles celebration. So I'm trying to buy a green suit, and it's plays to this. You know, I wanted to get a green suit. I was looking for a Kelly green suit, but any green suit would have done. But I'm in Vegas. I'm out there, and I'm like in a massive metro area, and every single men's dress store that I would go to. Now, this is a first world privilege problem, okay? I'm not talking about a $30 expenditure, but I'm trying to get this, got this invite, and every single person would say the same thing. They're like, oh, well, you can order online, there's tons of options. And then I go on Amazon, I order this Kelly green suit. It comes in, it looks like I'm a leprechaun, right? It doesn't fit, it's horrible, the material's just garbage. Yeah, you're right. I miss that experience.
You used to be able to get that in Philadelphia at Crafts Brothers.
There you go.
South Street.
It's same with food. I want to test out my food before I buy like my produce. I want to feel the melon. Same with the shirt. I mean, it's the same with the shirt. But because of this upward momentum of finances, especially since COVID, the acceleration, the hyper conglomeration of corporations, you're seeing like megacorps in control of a lot of.
I feel like the issue
sales.
is that COVID kind of gave us a taste of what it could be, but as time's gone on, the quality that products used to have from Amazon, right? Like you used to be able to get decent stuff from Amazon. It's really just gone down the tubes as more and more and more people got used to having things delivered to their house. It's like once you get used to that, you knee-jerk to Amazon to get anything, and then it's like companies realized, oh, we can just sell garbage on Amazon and people will buy it. So it's like it's an unhappy byproduct of constantly getting stuff from the internet as opposed to going and buying
I'm
a thing.
sure they have this conversation at Amazon and they're like, okay, we're going to just sell crap. We're going to be willing to lower our
Amazon
quality.
doesn't sell stuff.
Or they'll facilitate the sales of whatever cheap quality. And then they're like, if they return it, they return it. It's a cost on us, but odds are they're not going to return it because they just play on that. And
I think you're probably right.
That's why I almost never buy anything from Amazon unless there's something that I just cannot get. I'm like, nope, I'm going to go to the store. I'm going to try it on and make sure that it's something decent. And even still, that's the sad part, is that so many of the products that are in the stores, even that you go to look at, it's terrible. I had a pair of shorts that I just bought. I don't normally go to the big department stores, but I went to JCPenney's and I got a pair of shorts. The first day that I wore the shorts, the button failed.
Yeah.
And it broke out of the whole shorts. And I'm like, what in the world? I'm like, what is this garbage? And I'm like, fine, I'm just buying stuff at Levi's. I'm like, I know that it'll last longer. I'm like, this is so stupid.
And it doesn't matter where you buy it. I mean, you could buy shorts for $20. You could buy shorts for $100. You could buy shorts for $200. The button's going to come off. Button's going to come off.
Did you guys see, before we move on away from Amazon, that they were going to display the tariff costs on their website? And then there's a bunch of
Yes.
government.
Hoping they would, and I thought it was a good idea because at the very least, I want to know if something's coming from China or if something's made in America. I wish they would tell
It was
you.
interesting because it wasn't going to be for the consumer side. It was for something called Amazon Haul, which is like more wholesale or something.
The White House pushed back. So as of 3 days ago on CNBC, Amazon says display tariff costs not going to happen.
Yeah.
Government always hates transparency. I mean, think about that. Amazon is trying to put this forward. They probably, if they wanted to go forward, let's say they'd have it done in 3 days. I still can't tell you what it costs to go to the doctor's office to get a routine physical.
No one
I mean,
can.
there's no transparency, and the government loves shutting that down.
Why do you guys think that? Is it cheap quality just because they can get away with it because China has a monopoly on manufacturing right now?
Well, I think because people expect to replace things as opposed to have things that last.
Planned obsolescence.
Yeah, that's something that's been fairly well known, and maybe it has something to do with the fact that there is such a turnover in technology now that kind of that mindset is filtered into other products as well. But I mean,
Well, and more people don't know how to do repairs on products anymore either. I mean, look at cars. They've made everything so sophisticated on some of these newer vehicles that if you were going to try to actually go work on that yourself, you'll need all these, very specific tools. You have the whole, digital apparatus that's built into it. It's not the same as it was, 30 years ago to try to change your oil or just do something routine on your car.
There's this movement called the right to repair movement.
I love that. I believe in that too.
And I would hear it and it'd be like boring. Every time I'd hear it, I'd be like, yawn, data, tech. But it's so important. According to the people that I think it's Louis Rossmann, who has been on this show before, he's big into it. And it's just like, hey, Apple, if you're going to sell products, you need to sell the products that I am going to need to repair this thing. And it's like a legal battle. I don't know where it's at right now, but I think that would be something cool to push forward.
I think that's a big deal too. Yeah. Because people used to be able to look at like my cousin Vinny, like she knew how to fix a car.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, fixing cars.
I just watched that again the other day.
It's a good movie.
Good movie.
I mean, I don't know that I want the government telling Apple what they have to do. I don't know that I want the government telling Tesla what they have to do. I do think that it's fine to be like, hey, I want to know how to fix this, or I want to be able to fix this. I also like the way Apple products work. And part of that is Apple's control over how they work. I like the way my Tesla works. And part of that is Tesla's control over how they work. So I do understand people that are like, I want to be able to fix this. But at the same time, I also, I don't want the quality of the product to change. I don't want my computer to work badly. I don't want to have, the garbage, spyware or whatever that it tends to be ubiquitous through PC stuff in my Apple products as well. I like that control that the company has. And there are options. If you don't want to have a company that has that kind of control of it, you can buy other stuff. So
yeah, and I think the market reacts. I know everyone's jumping to AI, but we keep talking about, cars. I was meeting with these guys. There's this new company, Crash Champions. They, collision repair type company. And they were telling me they're dying for technicians, people that have these skills because, most people don't these days, right? And most people, even just a simple ability to fix something in your car. They went from 8 locations in 2018. They've got over 650 now. So, I'm not saying this plays into the AI thing and that, we're trying to, but the market will respond. And I think a lot of these things, it's interesting to see. Yeah, we'd like to be able to fix it, but there is an argument here. It's creating a lot of jobs, making it so that things are popping up. But yeah, the Crash Champions, I was talking to them last week and kind of fascinated with, how the market is moving to that because it's a real skill to be able to fix those things that most people, they just don't have that skill set.
And they're repairing stuff with new technology?
So they're just, they're repairing, it's a crash, collision type repairs, but which obviously I'm not saying normal folks should be able to do that, but I'm just saying it's interesting to see the job market kind of spring up because there's just certain things that AI, it's going to take a while to get there, but the market's going to provide and respond.
All right, we're going to jump to this story here. Court audio from 2020 reveals wife of Kilmar Abrego Garcia said he hit her repeatedly. Shocker. From the Post-Millennial, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, an alleged MS-13 gang member deported to El Salvador, faces additional allegations of abuse after a newly released audio recording featuring his wife, Jennifer Vasquez Ora, pleading to a judge for a temporary protection order against him. In the audio recorded during an August 2020 court hearing, Sura had detailed the alleged physical abuse she suffered from Abrego Garcia, which included allegations that he grabbed her by the hair, slapped her, and hit her. I mean, slapping is hitting, but on Wednesday, he hit me, around 3 in the morning. He would just wake up and hit me, she told the judge. Sura said she attempted to escape after witnessing a neighbor walk by and screamed for help. However, the attempt was unsuccessful. She said Abrego Garcia then grabbed me from my hair and then slapped me, according to the audio obtained by USA Today. Is the audio here on this this video, or is this?
Yeah, there's an audio.
All right, let's take a listen to this.
I came to fill out a protective order. I think it was in December. But I didn't show up to the court because his family washed my brain telling me that his dad was sick and not to do it. So I didn't do anything. But after that, it was I would call the police. I have a lot of police reports, and I kept trying to get to the door basement to try to open the door, and then he pushed me. So then when I was able to go outside to get a phone, I called 911 from a disconnected phone. Now they took a long time to get to the house. It was probably 20-30 minutes. So I saw a neighbor walking his dog, and I opened the door and I was like, help. And then when he heard me, he grabbed me from my hair and then he slapped me. And then the neighbor, he didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to react. I have pictures of the evidence, all the bruises, because even on Wednesday, he hit me around 3 in the morning. He would just wake up and hit me. And then last Saturday for my daughter's birthday party, before I went to my daughter's birthday party, he slapped me 3 times. And then last week I did call the police. My sister called the police because he hit me in front of my sister.
Is anyone surprised about this?
It's a bad dude. Very bad dude.
Look, my opinion on this whole Abrego Garcia situation is deport him regardless of any criminal activity that he's had. The fact that he's here illegally is all I need to know. Go home. Send him out. I don't care. This stuff proves that he's bad, but this is all Democrat, Republican arguing over, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Is he a innocent Baba angel? Or is he a, MS-13 gang evil man? I don't care. He's here illegally. Send him home. This is why Donald Trump was elected. I don't see why this is so controversial.
What I think is crazy, too, is the Democrats have spent so much time trying to paint this guy as a saint. And he had a deportation order already. He wasn't deported at the time. It was, in fact, I think in 2019, the DOJ just decided not to send him home. There was an order that he didn't have to go to some place, but he could be sent to other places. So he's had his due process. This order to deport him has been there this whole time. He already went through the court system. This is not the case to die on. Yet they've had how many Democrats have gone down to El Salvador to try and talk to this guy? He's got the tattoos that are indicative of MS-13 activity. He was picked up in front of a Home Depot in Maryland. What was it after his first arrest, 2019-ish, and that was part of local cops doing an investigation into local gang activity. That's why he was picked up there. He's beat up his wife, obviously, many times. And even when she was interviewed about it and she said, "Are you afraid of your husband?" She said, "My husband's alive. That's all I can say." After a really long pause. This is not a guy who, he's not American. He's already has a deportation order. He's a citizen of El Salvador, and now he's under their jurisdiction. How is this an issue for everybody? You know what I mean?
I cannot understand how Democrats continue to pick these issues to go all in on, that 10, 15% of their own party is excited about it or thinks that it's some big deal. To me, this is going to become, if they stick with this and they go all in the way they are, if they double down, if they triple down, this will become the issue that the border has been for the past 4 years, right? They're doubling down on the worst issue they have, which is the border. They still think that this virtue signaling is going to work. I mean, I don't think it's as big as the, transgender surgeries for these prison inmates. I don't think the Republicans will spend that much money on it. But if they continue this into 2026, talking about this guy and all of this stuff keeps coming out, I just think it's one of the stupidest political moves you can possibly make.
That's why I love it.
It's sort of the phenomenon of like smelling blood in the water, a shark, just one drop of blood, and that motherfucker gonna go crazy. Just like people looking for a problem, looking for a Trump problem. There's a drop of it. Let's go crazy. And it's almost like you can bait them. I'm sure the administration is looking for ways to bait them getting upset about things that aren't a big.
Well, I mean, look, but it's not even just the administration. There was that, what was it? The reporter that was walking next to Ilhan Omar and asked her a question, just completely and totally calmly normal. Wasn't some kind of gotcha question.
F you.
Her response was F you for asking her a question. That's kind of become the norm.
Someone replied to that with that video with, "Do you talk to your brother with that mouth?"
I love it. I assume she doesn't because, well, I'm not going to go there. Anyways, but yeah, this is kind of the norm for Democrats. They think that, it seems like they think that being edgy is going to win them votes because it wins them a popularity contest on the internet. It does energize their base, and their base is like, yeah, you're sticking it to the man. But that doesn't win elections.
They've learned nothing. They continue to pick these issues that are showing that I thought 2024, what got me nervous was, okay, they're going to move away from the crazy stuff. They're going to come out. They're going to admit Harris was a horrible choice. They're going to move away from the woke stuff. They're going to get off the border. They're going to say, no, let's have a sensible border policy.
Nope.
Just complete double down. They're in complete denial. And look, there's time to right the ship. There's time for them to pick a nominee or, have some sort of new leader come up. But it's just wild to me on some of these issues. I mean, even if you look at polling, and I think, look, some of them are learning. I mean, Gretchen Whitmer just did her little thing at the Trump event. She got it.
She hit her face, which was...
No, this was the new one. So
bad.
That was White House. She hit her face, and then she got the backlash and realized, hey, I can't just be edgy, right? I can't just keep being anti-Trump. And enough people that are working class were like, what are you doing? You're at the White House. So then they had this public event, and Trump brought her up and kind of said, hey, do you want to say a few words? And I think that eventually... we might have to spoon feed them, but the Democrats are going to learn from their own voters that we have to have rational opinions. And to just keep being radical, they should have learned from 24 it's not going to sell. I hope they don't. I hope they, put AOC up there, put Bernie up there. But it's gonna backfire politically.
Well, that's the plan that they have. Did you hear Kamala Harris the other night giving her speech at the Emerge
No
Gala?
one heard Kamala Harris give that speech.
So
Libby.
I watched
you and 17 other Americans.
I watched it. I watched it because I cover the news. But she announced exactly who she thinks are the leaders of the party, and she praised them: Cory Booker, Chris Van Hollen, Chris Murphy, Jasmine Crockett, Maxwell Frost, AOC, and Bernie Sanders. These are the people that she mentioned who are like, the pinnacles of the Democratic Party right now. And all of these people, I mean, AOC definitely has some political talent, but Jasmine Crockett has no ideas. Maxwell Frost is an idiot. Chris Van Hollen went to El Salvador and he, to talk to this MS-13 guy, and he never talked to his own constituents whose family, with Rachel Morin, I think, murdered by illegal immigrants. He didn't reach out to her mom. Cory Booker, the last thing I remember about him was he gave that speech, and before that I remember he pulled somebody out of a fire in Newark. And that's it. Like these are your top talent.
Do any of them
And Bernie Sanders is what, 80 million years old right now?
Yes.
Do any of them have one single issue that is something that they feel like here's a solution or here is a bold plan for the future? I don't feel like they have anything they bring to the table except orange man bad.
Yeah, that's pretty much what they have. And now they're saying, that the America we're living in now is Trump's horrible vision. Well, we've got jobs up. We've got the border finally under control, which is, of course, why we had to bring Trump back again in the first place. He fixed the border. They destroyed it again. He had to come back to fix it.
Do you think that... Go ahead.
Well, Cliff, back to something you said about rationality. I think that a story like this changes the narrative quite a bit for a lot of people, at least people more in the middle. Maybe not your radical leftists, but this is something that happens a lot. As someone who worked in victim advocacy for a prosecuting attorney's office where there's these domestic situations that happen and, the wives of these people, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever it is, it happens quite a bit where they cannot. They struggle because these victims want to come forwards. They want to tell the courts what's going on, but then they're worried that the person that they care about will then be deported. And so they go back and forth, they retract, and it's this ongoing issue. But I think for a lot of Americans, when they see, okay, this really is a bad dude, I think that they're not going to be so much on the Democrat side of things.
like I said, I like the fact that they're taking these positions because they're extremely unpopular positions to take. And so I do think that if they do continue to stick to their guns and have these, extort these positions, then you're going to see, a lot of failure at the ballot box next year or in 2 years. And that's great. Like, that's what I'm hoping for, because I think the Democrat policies have been terrible for the U.S. But I do get the sense, I do have a feeling that they're going to figure it out. I can't imagine that there aren't people like Carville that are going to be like, look, you have to stop. Even if he's come out and he said, oh, David Hogg is a fighter. I know that he kind of bent the knee there, which is, in my opinion, a terrible idea. Behind the scenes, he's like, you can't expect to win with this. These are all 80-20, 85-15 kind of issues.
And the more Trump can keep them off talking economics, right, whether it's good or bad, that's what the election is going to come down to. If I'm the Democrats right now, the biggest missed opportunity is nobody is out there with some sort of economic plan that they're saying, this is how we're going to bring costs down. This is how we're going to control the inflation. And that's got to be their pivotal issue in 2026. If they pick anything else, those issues they're not with the American people on. But once again, I know they'll say, oh, some random Democrat congressman has a plan out there to, do X, Y, and Z financially. But that's the missing piece. If I'm in the Democrat strategy room, it's like, look, let's at least put something out. So if things do downturn, if things are not going great economically, or people are struggling with the cost of food, we at least have an alternative. They're just playing Trump's game. They're focused on all the wrong issues. I don't want to give them too much advice, but that's the missing piece. You do that, then you at least have that Trump card to play when it's time in 2026. But right now, you're screaming about every issue except the cost of goods.
Yeah, I don't see how they are going to right this ship when they're continuing to bring to light or focus on the most radical people in their base. But we're going to go to this story here, which is a bit it's kind of a similar issue because it's got the MS-13 bent. Today, breaking from Bill Malugin. Bill Malugin. 3 Virginia Department of Corrections officers were stabbed in a state prison today in what the state says was a premeditated attack involving 5 MS-13 gang members, all of whom are Salvadoran illegal aliens who've been convicted of violent crimes such as murder and rape. So the statement says, Richmond, the Virginia Department of Corrections is currently investigating the apparently premeditated stabbing of 3 corrections officers at the Wallens Ridge State Prison. The attack occurred at approximately 9:45 a.m. on Friday, May 2nd. 5 of the 6 inmates involved in the attack are confirmed MS-13 gang members from El Salvador who were in this country illegally. Each have been convicted of violent crimes including aggravated murder, first and second-degree murder, and rape. The other inmate involved in the attack is a confirmed member of the Serrano 13 gang and from the United States, serving a sentence for second-degree murder. Send them all to Gitmo.
Yes. Well, or Seacoat in El Salvador. Like, why not?
Yeah, I mean, they're illegal aliens, so you can send them to Seacoat too. Again, it's bad that there are all these criminals that we have that are illegal immigrants. Just send them out.
Oh, hold on.
There should all get sent right out.
What about? I'm not advocating for capital punishment, but if they were attacked and killed, did they kill guards? Because I don't think if they did a horrible enough thing, you don't send them anywhere.
They said they committed the attack. They stabbed him. So I don't know that they.
Yeah, but they're convicted of murder, second-degree murder, and rape.
Yeah.
I mean, so before this incident,
they were already bad guys.
My first thought is, what the hell are violent illegal immigrants doing in American prisons still?
Well, if they've committed a crime in the U.S., the U.S. will imprison them.
And hold them instead of send them overseas. You keep them.
Well,
we only just got that deal with El Salvador, and we're paying them, I think, $6 million a year to take people from our prisons.
And a counter argument for years. I mean, honestly, from the right and the left was if somebody does something horrible here, let's imprison them here once they're convicted, because if we send them back, how confident are we they're going to imprison them there? And then they come back.
And historically, that has been the case. They'll just get to whatever country they were from, and that country will be like, well, you can't stay here, so you got to get out of here. So what they do is they make their way back to the border and come back to the U.S. illegally. I don't have a problem keeping them in Gitmo. I don't have a problem sending them to El Salvador. But again, this just illustrates the point that we have a problem with criminal gangs in the U.S. that are illegally here, that are illegal immigrants, and we need to do something about that. And we can't allow one political party to put the brakes on that when the whole of the American people are against keeping these people here.
I think if that was if there were 5 members of Al Qaeda that we had in prison and they stabbed an American guard, I think there would be a lot more anger from people across the spectrum, because Al Qaeda has been accepted as a terrorist organization generally, and it's still like, I think people are resistant because it's Trump that's the one that said MS-13 is a terrorist organization. People are like, anything you say, Trump, is bullshit. I don't agree with you. But
I think you're right.
Knowing a known Al Qaeda terrorists in prison attack a guard, I don't think they're seeing the light of day. Like if they're already Al Qaeda terrorists, and I'm not saying it was righteous to call these people terrorists. I'm not saying that. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. George Bush was a funny guy, but
well, Al Qaeda?
Yeah,
no, it's right to call them terrorists.
Yeah,
I'm completely.
ISIS was the next one. I was like, I just heard ISIS on the news. I'm like, oh, now the next terrorist organization's in the books. Now it's called ISIS. This one, anyway.
Right.
They're terrorists too.
I think MS-13. This is definitely an example that these guys are. And 5 guys don't speak for the entire MS-13, but they're definitely not giving it a good name. And
it's a criminal gang. It's like an international criminal gang. They do drugs and smuggling and human trafficking.
Human trafficking.
I mean, stuff,
like I'm the drug stuff. You're gonna have a lot of libertarians be like, well, if you just let people do the drugs they want to do, you wouldn't have this problem. And
the United States Institutes for Peace were arguing that the Taliban should not be cracking down on opium producers because it was bad for Afghans worldwide.
I can't believe that idiocy.
We were paying for that.
That's dumb. But
it's dumb.
The point that I'm making is, like, even if the libertarians go and make the stupid argument that, you can't do that because they're just selling drugs and it's fine. Like, they're still human traffickers. And that's actually... that's facilitating the rape of minors, like of little kids. You're not talking about, adult women that are like, well, maybe if I go into the sex working industry, things will be fine. No, you're talking about the rape of children. So in America, libertarians need to stop with their argument of, well, they're just, if we stop taking the drugs, it's our fault. Blame America. It's not. It's them trafficking children. That's the big horrible thing that's happening.
And the thing is, we wouldn't be having any of these problems if the border hadn't have been open for so long, where so many illegal immigrants were pouring through, and we had no checks to see who it was that was showing up. Were they wanted for rape and murder in the country they're coming from? Hey, we really should probably not let them in the U.S. That's the whole reason why there's an immigration process you're supposed to go through, or even to apply for a visa, is because we want to vet these people before they come into our country, and then they end up running amok and causing all these problems. If we didn't have all the people, all these really bad people pouring in, it would be much less of a problem.
I was thinking about, because they called it an invasion, and that Biden administration literally didn't defend our country. They let foreign people.
He was complicit.
That's another level.
He invited them.
At the very least,
surge the border.
Defend the. Yeah, he did. He told him to surge in his campaign, in his 2020 campaign. Defend the country. That's your job as the American government, as the military, is defend the country. If the people are coming in illegally, defend the country. And
there was this crazy thing too, where Texas tried to put up a border wall, and the Biden administration took them to court. And the court said, hey, Texas, you're not allowed to put up a border wall. And now you have all of these judges who are saying you're not allowed. Okay, so you're not allowed to defend the country. We already have discovered that. And you had multiple states taking the Biden administration to court saying, you're destroying the border, you're creating this crisis. And judges were like, meh, whatever. But now that the Trump administration is trying to get rid of criminals who don't belong here, who have orders of deportation already, who've committed crimes in America, the judges are saying, no, they have to stay here. Like, what is up with this judiciary who for the past 4 years refused to enforce the law, refused to hold the administration accountable to the laws that Congress set out, and now is preventing the government from deporting people? Why is that happening? What kind of judiciary is this? Why are they doing this?
Andrew Jackson's got a quote about who was it? The courts. He said they made their decision. Now let them enforce it.
Yeah.
Well, that's the whole thing, right? I mean, if people don't, and this is something that the Chief Justice said a couple of weeks ago, if people don't have respect for the court's orders, then we don't really have a third branch of government. The Supreme Court, it's fascinating. They can make a decision, but they can't do anything about it. It's all entirely dependent on if we respect their decisions. And the judiciary is getting to a point where a lot of their decisions are hard to respect. Like the one recently where you had the ACLU bring a case. They said the Trump administration was going to deport, I think, 50 Venezuelans from Anson, Texas, from a facility in Texas. And the ACLU brought the case, and they brought the case in the Northern District of Texas. And they said, hey, you have to put a stop to this. It's going to happen right now. Simultaneously, they brought the case to the Fifth Circuit in Louisiana, and they brought the case to the Supreme Court all at once. So the ACLU didn't give the lower courts time to make a decision, right? The Northern District Court of Texas was like, hang on, we'll get to it. The Fifth Circuit said something as well. And then the Supreme Court jumped in, completely bypassing the lower courts. Now, the Supreme Court is an appellate court. You don't get to the Supreme Court without appealing and appealing and appealing. It's an appellate court. The Supreme Court jumped in and said, hey, Trump administration, you can't deport any of these people without a further order from this court, which makes no sense because that case is a Texas case. And what the ACLU did in that case was they said, they wanted protection for this specific class of people. They want to turn anybody who is potentially subject to deportation into one class nationwide so that they can bring one suit. And because otherwise, per the Supreme Court rulings previously this year, you have to bring suit in the district where the people are being held, which means the ACLU has to run around to hundreds of different districts to prevent this stuff. And they want to just do one thing nationally. But it's so fascinating to me that these courts just let all this happen. All these judges were like, no, you can't. The Biden administration doesn't have to do that. They don't have to protect the border, and neither can you, states. You can't protect the border. And now they're not letting the enforcement arm clean this all up. It makes no sense to me.
I think that the only sense I can make of it is that it's an emotional reaction, or it's being incited by an emotional reaction to Trump's willingness to use intimidation instead of persuasion. And people are literally afraid of the.
Well, part of it was just one thing, that there was a California judge, Edward Chen, who was objecting to the deportation of Venezuelans in part because he thought that DHS was using negative stereotypes about the Venezuelans. And you had a judge in, I forget her last name, but a judge in Boston who was saying that you can't eliminate the temporary protected status for a whole bunch of people because a lot of these people, in part because a lot of these people send remittances home and their families in their home countries depend on their income in the U.S. So you can't, so the U.S. can't restrict, can't change their status, their semi-legal status. And so those are both emotional reactions.
I understand your perspective, Ian, but that doesn't really address why they were behaving the way they did under the Biden administration.
That's a good point, man.
If they're like, well, we don't want to send these people back because it's mean, that doesn't address the fact that they weren't allowing people to prevent them from they weren't allowing states from allowing them to getting in, and they had no inclination to force the Biden administration or even make rulings about the Biden administration actually not enforcing the law, because that's the job of the executive.
Yeah, but the point you made earlier where you said, listen, they're here illegally. We don't have to debate all the other things. The crazy thing is that Democrats are talking now about MS-13. MS-13 I mean, the ads are going to write themselves. These guys, their Los Angeles chapter, documented. You do have to commit a murder to get in. That is documented. It's public. MS-13.
Really? So everybody does.
They have to do a murder. The craziest thing I saw about MS-13, a majority of the hit jobs that they put out, the killings from them, are done by minors. A majority of them. Nobody talks about this, but when the Democrats are going to go in and defend MS-13, I'm telling you, it's going to become a huge talking point. You heard it here first. A majority of the killings that they do as a gang are people under the age of 18. If you don't think those people are bad people that no one is going to defend, they are subhuman people, I just think it's very clear that we're not just talking about people that came here illegally. These are bad dudes.
Yeah, that's terrible. Do they do that because minors can't be minors have a different set of rules?
Yeah, they're because they're protected from being treated as an adult, and they try to get them before they're 17, where it's kind of a gray area. They get them if they can get them when they're like 14 or 15, when they're clearly a child, and have them commit their first murder. Then that's
and I can't believe that this is happening in the United States, and we're just allowing this. In other countries, if you're like a bad person and you go commit crimes in these countries, first off, they might not let you in to begin with. But then if you do bad stuff, you're going to go to jail forever. And you don't have people, that are like, oh, the poor MS-13 gang members. We need to be there for them. Those poor people.
It does. It is, and we've said this on the show a bunch of times, but it is really remarkable that they're going to use the perspective of, oh, the poor MS-13 gang members. You can say, oh, this is not, they didn't get due process or whatever, but to really sit there and be like, oh, we're going to defend the gang members, it's something that the Democrats can't help but do. Is they're defending bad people,
defending inmates for transgender surgery being paid by taxpayers. I mean, I'm not saying that transgender folks that are convicted of much lesser crimes are MS-13. But man, you pick some funny people to go to bat for.
There was did you guys talk about it on the show? I probably missed it, and you probably did. But the guy who is accused of firebombing a Tesla dealership in Kansas City, a judge released him in part because he has ADHD, is depressed, and needed access to his gender-affirming treatment. He was he allegedly committed the act in March. He started the gender treatment in March.
Do you think he was on hormones, and the gender affirming care could have had to have done with what he actually decided to do?
Maybe. I mean, estrogen does really weird things to the brain, so I don't know.
You said it, not me.
I sure did. Sure did say it. It's the truth.
We're going to jump to this story now. 3 House Democrats asked to be removed from the Trump impeachment resolution. We were talking about how crazy Democrats are, but this might actually be indicating that they're trying to get their S together. From the Hill, a trio of House Democrats asked to be removed as co-sponsors of a resolution to impeach President Trump, a sign that many in the party do not want to go down the path of trying to remove the president from office, at least at the current moment. Reps Kwesi Mfume from Maryland, Robin Kelly, and
Jerry. Say it with confidence.
What?
Just say it with confidence.
Kwesi Mfume, Robin Kelly, and Jerry Nadler had signed on as co-sponsors of Rep. Cherie Thandier's impeachment resolution, which includes 7 articles of impeachment. But Tuesday afternoon, they went to the House floor and asked for their names to be taken off the legislation. The House clerk granted their requests. Spokespeople for Kelly and Mfume said the lawmakers initially signed on to the effort because they assumed it had been reviewed by leadership. When they learned it was not, they asked for their names to be removed. Congressman Mfume removed his name as a co-sponsor from House Resolution 353 because he was made aware it was not cleared by Democratic leadership and not fully vetted legally. And he preferred to err on the side of caution, the spokesperson for Mfume said. The Congresswoman was under the impression that the resolution was drafted and reviewed by both the House Judiciary Committee and leadership when she originally signed on during a vote series on the floor. Kelly's spokesman said Nadler's office did not respond to several requests for comment. Do you guys buy that those are the reasons that they want their names off, or do you think that this is just politically a bad move at this time? Because I think we're all in agreement that should the Democrats take the House in the midterms, there will be articles of impeachment filed again.
John Ossoff and Chuck Schumer already basically said that they would do that, I think I think part of what happened here is that the congressman who brought the impeachment, he turned out to look a little bit crazy, and I think maybe they
lot of
didn't
bit crazy.
Looked a little bit crazy. The guy's $730,000 in debt in his campaign.
And he left a bunch of beagles to die in a lab in New Jersey when his business went bankrupt.
Yeah, they're not sending their best. I will tell you that. I think it is authentic that they got on it and then got off. I don't think they purposely said, hey, I'm going to get on this resolution and now I'm going to get off it. I think the reason is, once again, I'm not saying that the Democrats have had a full awakening, but I think they probably saw the backlash. They saw the backlash to just being super anti-Trump, and enough of their normal Democrats in their district probably like, are you serious? Here we go again with this whole impeachment thing? Let's just go after them on the issues. Let's just go after them on this. Let's just beat them in the 2026 election. So I could be wrong. They could have had this plan, and now they're going to be seen as moderates. But Jerry Nadler, his district's a D plus 100. I mean, he doesn't need to get moderate voters. Yep. So I think there's probably some.
Have you ever looked at his district, the map?
No.
It's okay. So it goes down the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and like down for a bit, and then it cuts across into Brooklyn. It covers like 2 blocks wide to get to like another Democrat stronghold. It just skips through the top of Bay Ridge, because Bay Ridge would not elect him, right? Bay Ridge has Nicole Maliotakis, and so it's just this teeny sliver just so he can get to the rest of the Democrats.
Democrats are so good at districting. They're so good at districting, and Republicans like, well, we don't want to be seen as racist, so we have to make fair maps. It's like, look at their maps.
I hate the Republicans for not having the balls to be as good as the Democrats are at that. And I hate the Democrats for even doing that. They should be simply like wards in a city, or just all of Manhattan is one district.
There's going to become a battle. Let me bring up New Hampshire. Get you excited, Phil. There's going to be a battle in New Hampshire where right now the legislature is working through new maps to present to Kelly Ayotte, the governor, and I think it's going to become a very big national movement, because they could realistically, legally, and I would argue correctly, adjust the maps to make one of those seats a competitive Republican seat. And so I think, there's a district right there that could move, but it's going to take a lot of pressure from folks out there. Call your people in New Hampshire, but that's going to be one of the only seats that, because of maps, could move. That would be
stellar. But I think that the rest of the country should follow suit. But the idea that a 2-block stretch connects two significantly,
it's crazy.
Yeah, significantly different pieces of New York. It's insane. But I do want to point out. A friend of mine sent me a text and asked, when did Chris Kattan become a politician, talking about this
he's
Stan Deary guy.
It does kind of look like Chris Kattan.
I thought
that's funny.
He's like a tan Chris Kattan.
I wrote this guy off as a loony because he was smiling a lot when he was talking, and then I gave him a chance on Piers Morgan. I listened for a short period of time. Okay, he's probably a normal guy. I think Tim had a great combo with him on Piers Morgan. I haven't seen the whole article yet. But what I really want to know is there anything to these? Are these impeachments legit? Are these 7 counts? Any of them? No. Is there anything about any of it that's legit?
If you listen to the discussion that Tim had with him, it was all just, well, I don't like Donald Trump, and we don't like what he's done, and this is unpopular, and that's unpopular.
Yep.
And that's as partisan as it gets. So to say that this is, something that rises to the level of impeachment is absolutely ridiculous. I think that this is just like Tim says, I think it's just a stunt. The Democrats don't have leadership, and so this guy's trying to plant his flag.
Because it's almost like that's too stupid to be real, but I think you might be right.
It's not too
They didn't run it by leadership. I didn't know that till just now.
And it's so stupid because I think at a certain point, look, you can always introduce articles of impeachment. Again, if you have the majority, which they don't even have, but if you have it and you want to go through the process, but your voters have to want that. Your voters, the American people, not just your actual voters, but all these swing districts are going to be impacted by that. And if it becomes this petty battle against Trump, and I just think with all of these, the guy was shot in the face. The guy was impeached. They tried to convict him of all these crazy things. Once again, Democrats have not learned. And I think that's why these 3 are pulling their names. Because I think as much as Schumer and them are kind of flirting with it, I think politically behind the scenes, their strategists, if they have just an ounce of any type of strategy left, I don't think there's an appetite for this even amongst Democrats.
No, I don't think so either. And when you look at it too, you keep seeing Democrat leadership start saying about how they need to take, Democrats need to take to the streets and start protesting and all of that stuff. And we're not seeing as much of that as you might have thought that we would. There's a lot less energy for rioting and protests and screaming your bloody head off
Retired boomers.
among normal people, and it's just the retired boomers who are out there doing their weird hippie dances and complaining about how nobody else is joining them. Meanwhile, they're like, oh, I'm having so much trouble affording my summer house and my normal home. What am I going to do? These are the same people that are not sharing. This is the group that is most adverse to leaving their wealth behind. They're still traveling around the world trying to find themselves. The rest of us are like, really, we figured out in our 20s that we probably just need to pay our bills.
Well, and with these particular articles of impeachment as well, for instance, the creation of an unlawful office in terms of Doge is kind of insanity, because Doge was not going around and making these changes. I think the media painted that very differently than what it actually was, because Doge was just looking in. They just were going through the books of these different agencies and seeing, well, what's really here? And then they were making recommendations. Yeah. And then the agencies would do with that what they will.
Not only that, the Doge is actually the continuation of
U.S. Digital Services.
Yeah,
it was USDS, and then it was Obama started it in 2014, and then Trump renamed it. They got in office day after to U.S. It's still USDS, U.S. Doge offices now. It's the same office. So it was created by executive order legally. It's legal to change the name of it. It was legally created.
Yeah.
So it's not even so the articles of impeachment are actually wrong, because it wasn't created by Donald Trump. It was created by Barack Obama.
But it has Elon's name attached to it, so we have to hate it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's really what it is. It's all about the people that are involved, not about whether or not there's a necessity for it, which clearly there is. Very few people think, oh no, every dollar that the government spends is used very wisely, right down to the penny. There's no waste, there's no fraud, blah blah blah. No one thinks that. There's not an American out there that would say, no, I think that they really spend our money wisely.
Yeah, even the people protesting, and I'll only use my parents as examples because they went out and protested. They were reliving the late 60s, 1969, and
just recently they did.
Yeah, like a month ago, and I was like, "What are you guys protesting?" And they were like, "Well, Trump." And I'm like, "Well, what are you protesting for?" And they were like, "I don't know. I got to go, Ian." My dad was like, "I got to go. We'll talk about it later." And I'm like, "Because there's nothing. They don't." I think they're afraid they're going to lose their retirement funds because of the kooky-ladoo going on in the government right now. And I mean, that's an inevitable. We're hitting an inevitable wall anyway at $36 trillion in debt. So they're out there trying to stop that all from happening. But unless you create, like you were saying earlier, Cliff, like a better plan to make gas cheaper, unless you present that, the protests don't have any emphasis. I mean, the Vietnam protests were end the Vietnam War. So they were anti-LBJ, stop the war. I don't know if they actually had something to create.
I'm gonna jump in real quick. They weren't so much anti-Vietnam War because they were anti-war. They were anti-Vietnam War because they were on the side of the communists.
But also because that was the first war where we actually saw war televised. I mean, you had journalists.
Agreed. It was real.
Yeah, you had journalists that was out in the jungle or whatever, actually filming what was going on. This is what was being broadcast to people in the evening. So I think part of it was when you look at that kind of carnage, that's really hard to stomach. I mean, if the Dresden firebombing had been televised live to people's homes, people would have had a much different idea of what was going on in Dresden as well. I mean, seeing children set on fire because the air was on fire, that's going to be rough, right? That's hard to stomach. But I don't think it was just because everyone was on the side of the communists. I think people were losing their sons and brothers and dads.
I think the people I'm talking about the people that were out in the streets protesting.
The dirty hippies.
Yeah, the people that were on college campuses that were protesting. They were protesting not because they're against war as a concept, it's because they were on the side of the
I don't
communists.
know. I mean, I wonder, like, I protested war myself, like back in the old days of George W. Bush.
Yeah, but that was a totally
And that was
different.
like, it was a totally different kind of war, but
Yeah.
like, it was because I thought that the yellow cake thing was a lie, and there was probably, we should have no war. Like, there's no reason to go to war against Iraq.
Yeah,
It seemed dumb.
but like I said, I think the contexts were very, very different.
Sure.
You know, they were actual communist. The Vietnamese were actual communists. Vietnam was a communist country. North Vietnam was actually communists, and they were fighting actual communists in the U.S. They were like, no, or the people that were the earthy crunchies that were protesting. They were
Sure.
like, no,
I think
actually, they have
there was
good
that.
ideas.
I think the piece that turned it though was that there were so many people
Yes,
actually
I agree about
seeing
that.
what was going on.
Yeah, I agree that the effect of the news bringing that into people's homes can't be denied.
You see a guy.
I just watched The Wonder Years.
Oh, great show! Like some of that Vietnam footage is phenomenal, and it's on YouTube. Like he'll be there with a platoon, and then the guy gets shot, and then he's like, they're bandaging up his leg, and he's like almost in shock, just talking to the platoon, and then they medevac him out, and like they're hanging out. It's just a jungle, just like we go outside and sit down there, and it could be like there, like it's that realistic, and they're like 18 years old, and you're watching.
They're all kids, yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't a popular war overall, and the fact that the draft was part of it was another big thing. You know, the wars that we fought in the 21st century, regardless of your feeling about them, the people that went to war, they volunteered. There was no draft. Everybody that went
And
there.
people would show up, or people would like volunteer early.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This stuff with Doge that people are protesting, if that's what they're protesting, it's so vague. A lot of it's been happening behind the scenes that it seems like people don't really know what they're
Yeah,
protesting.
but let me throw a warning out there. I mean, I thought the same thing, and then this Wisconsin Supreme Court race happened, and we lost by 10 there. And if you look at the entire messaging, so Indivisible, the left-wing group, did a lot of work on the ground, and we got a hold of their scripts, and their entire script was simply Elon Musk is a monster. And the power of fear, right? The power of just making Elon this horrible creature that, whatever they're protesting for, it doesn't matter if they don't have a message, right? If you have a boogeyman, if you have, and Wisconsin proves it. I wish it didn't, right? I wish at the Wisconsin race you could see, hey, they were talking about, certain issues that the left cared about. No, it was Elon Musk is the devil, and if you want to stop him, we have to elect this Democrat to the Supreme Court in Wisconsin, and they won by 10 points. Now, people can say Republicans were complacent, that we didn't have something that was motivating our side, but that worries me, that voters react that way, and their entire message was Elon bad, you can stop him by voting for the Democrat.
Man,
You
it's
have a
Canada. Look, sorry, Libby,
go
but
ahead.
this Canadian election, it's the ultimate example of Trump scaring people and then them voting against him. Or
It was mostly boomers. It was mostly boomers that voted liberal. We ran a story on that the other day. Boomers were terrified of Trump, and everybody else just wanted to be able to have decent housing. But it was the boomers that gave this election in Canada to the liberals.
Why are the boomers so afraid of Donald Trump? I don't.
Because they're his same age group. I feel like that has something to do with it. Like he's their peer. And so they all watched him like be this, dick playboy this whole time. And they hate his tone of voice. They like hate his tone. They hate his oeuvre. They hate his vibe. That's what they hate about him. And when this always happens with my mom, and I'll be like, 'cause my mom's very lefty and everything, and she'll be like, I hate Donald Trump, blah, blah, blah. And I'll be like, well, what about this idea? And she's like, that's not a bad idea. And I'm like, what about this? And she's like, no, that's a pretty good idea. And I'm like, so what do you hate about Trump? And she's like, well, I just hate everything about him. It's like they hate the man.
There's no substance there.
There's no substance. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to jump to this story from the Post-Millennial. HHS recommends therapy, not sex change, to treat gender dysphoria. Thank God. The Department of Health and Human Services has released its treatment for pediatric gender dysphoria review, in which it recommends a greater emphasis on behavioral therapy when addressing gender dysphoria in minors over invasive and permanent medical procedures such as pharmaceuticals or surgery. This is the most obvious thing that we have talked about, I think, ever on the show. The idea of using surgery on children when they're saying that they're experiencing gender dysphoria is insane. They go on. The 409-page review stated that medical and surgical interventions for children and adolescents with gender dysphoria are widely promoted as essential and even life-saving. Yet the evidence base does not support strong conclusions about their effectiveness in improving mental health or reducing gender dysphoria. There is no such thing as trans children. What do you guys think about this?
Well, I'm really glad to see them being willing to put this out here, because that's truly what's happening. Children cannot consent to make those changes about their bodies. They don't even know what they are yet or who they are. Adults are one thing. Children should not be having this happen to them. And in many cases, if you even recommend that they go to therapy and try to make sure that they're really sure that before they start getting on hormone blockers or anything like that, that's not even allowed. And then you're blocking them from getting their gender affirming care.
I used to play Wonder Woman out in my backyard when I was like, it was like a couple weeks ago. No, I'm just kidding. This is like when I was like 6, and I'd be whipping around all the whips and like, I just pretended to be Wonder Woman. And then my parents were like, hey, come in and eat your spinach. I'm like, does Wonder Woman eat spinach? And they said, yes. So I went in and ate the spinach, Phil. And then if they were crazy, they would have probably thought I was a woman. They could have easily been like, uh-oh, my kid is actually a woman on the inside. I was just an actor. They enhanced my creativity. They were like, it's okay to pretend to be things.
Throw that lasso of truth around your waist, and next thing you know, they're chopping your genitals.
You know, and she kind of looked like my mom, so I was like identifying with my mother. And
Did you have the Wonder Woman underoos? Did you remember?
No,
that?
I had Superman, and then my brother had I think I had a Batman one.
The
No, they
underoos
wouldn't
were
buy.
the
They wouldn't.
best.
They didn't encourage me to be like a girl just because I played I played a woman on stage multiple times too.
Yeah.
What's that?
I was just joking around.
Were you though?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's always a joke when you
But-
talk about underoos.
I was lucky to have sane
And we
parents
talk about trans people.
Underoos.
because I wasn't trans, and if my parents had been scared or made a crazy decision guided by the media or by their peers, and they actually took me and started to be like, do you feel like a girl? Like if they had really sat me down and had, as I was 6, I would have went along with it. I don't know. I would have. They're my parents. I would have trusted them.
That question alone is insane.
Do you feel like a girl?
Do you? Yeah. Do you?
I
feel
don't
like-
know.
Yeah. Like.
I have no idea what that feels like.
Like, how is a male, supposed to know if they feel like a female?
Especially a child.
A child has no idea.
before puberty. Like you don't. It's like you almost feel androgynous. I mean, there's the boy and the girl stuff going on, but
That doesn't really kick in until later, though, that you have any sense of like that the kinds of differences there are.
I mean, like, so when I was a little kid, I had a crush on my babysitter,
Mm-hmm.
but that wasn't like a developed understanding of what I wanted to relate from a relationship or whatever. It was like, oh, she's cute. He. You know, I was a kid. I didn't know.
I would chase girls around on the playground and try and kiss them. Not really, but like playfully, because I would see it on TV. I was mimicking. I'm like, boys are supposed to like girls, so I played that role. And if I'd been around a bunch of people being like, you're supposed to be a girl deep down, I would have been like, probably started playing that role. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and particularly kids go through so many social pressures that they are looking for outlets. A lot of the girls that actually used to get eating disorders and things like that, instead they are choosing transgenderism. If people, the book's been out for a few years. There's a very good book by Abigail Schreier. It's Irreversible Damage: The Transgender Craze Seducing Our Daughters. Came out in 2020, but it's a very good book, and it talks about how these young girls, it's popular among friend groups, where friend groups will get this idea of like, hey, we want to reject this idea of femininity, and instead we're going to become either non-binary or trans, and they're going to change their ideology. But it's popular with these groups as a social thing, which is just insanity.
And it's so influential. My
It
God,
is.
the 5 people, even as an adult, your 6 closest friends basically craft your identity. You would do it along with them. And as a kid, man, to have if one of them is jockeying is like more popular than you, it's like, you have the way you look up to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a status symbol as well. You look at the people in Hollywood that are like, oh, I have 3 trans children. It's like, do you really?
Well, now
do
Robert
you
De
really
Niro
believe that you have 3 trans children? Like, it's super rare, but all three of yours are. Really, who's the one responsible for that, really?
Right.
You know?
And gender dysphoria is a real thing, but there's no reason for now it to be exploding at these really crazy levels compared to what it's been in the past. It's a social thing that's
I'm
happened.
not even sure
Well,
that
it
gender
doesn't make
dysphoria is
sense.
real.
The other thing too that I think is interesting about what you're saying is that the rates of homosexuality has basically stayed steady, and the rates of trans has like skyrocketed. It's sort of like, why does homosexuality stay steady, but like trans is off the charts? It's artificially, it's artificially done. But I think that with this HHS report, this is the difference between having a man leading the HHS and a man who thinks he's a woman leading the HHS. This was Rachel Levine, who was the assistant HHS secretary.
Pennsylvania's finest.
Pennsylvania's finest, who, took his mom out of a nursing home ahead of sending all the COVID patients back to the nursing home.
Very consistent. Very consistent.
Yeah, I mean, real ethical fella here. But this is a person who was consistently saying that it's important to affirm your kids, put your kids through sex changes, had like a big impact on the Biden administration. Joe Biden came out and told parents to affirm their kids. Absolutely nauseating. And now we have a man who knows he's a man in charge, and we're not getting this kind of crap. This was a promise that Trump made. We're going to stop sex changing kids in the U.S., and, here we are delivering it.
I'm going to use my parents again. Oh, you going to say something?
Well, just adolescence as a whole is kids figuring out who they are and who they're going to be. That's essentially what you go through as that coming of age. And so you have all of this trans stuff that is going on. Look, as a middle schooler, I would have considered myself to be more of a tomboy. I'm like, oh yeah, I like sports, I like soccer, I like I think guns are cool. I had a habit of collecting knives. I thought that those were fun, and those were the more masculine hobbies. But if now girls that might just be tomboys and have some maybe traditionally masculine interest, we're telling them, oh, maybe you're not a girl, that maybe you're not who we thought you were based on what genitalia you were born with. Here, would you like to explore something else instead?
I think that we're missing a Mr. Rogers person in reality right now. And it's tough to centralize power and give that guy a TV show, because who watches television? A lot of it's on the internet. But like just someone telling you, you're okay who you are. You are you, and that's okay. And it feels weird sometimes. That's okay too.
There was this wild thing. So Robert De Niro's son just came out as trans, went from being Aaron to Aaron to Airyn. So the name's the same, it's just spelled different. But one of the things that he was saying when he was talking to Them magazine about coming out as trans was that as a child, he never heard that he was just right, just the way he is. And so now he's finding that by now he's finding that, like,
Totally.
but there's this weird idea that you're just right, just the way you are, by undergoing drastic medical intervention. Like, that doesn't make any sense. It's like you were talking about with the what?
I was going to say that's exactly the opposite of what they say.
Yeah.
Like, when I was a kid in the 90s, they were always saying, you can be anything you want. You're okay for who you are. And then at a certain point that changed to, you're not, they would tell people, you're not being represented for who you really are. Trust me, I know who you really are. And like this, people that are unfortunately vulnerable to that will fall for that. They'll immediately think, oh, well, I have these feelings that I feel like the unsurety of puberty, the weird feelings you feel, like the weird feelings you haven't felt your whole life up until that point, it gets manipulated. And that's what they love to do. Like Phil, we always talk about how they skin suit stuff. Yep. They take the argument and they make it this thing against like the oppressor, which is like your feelings and your emotions and like everything stressful. Like if DoorDash is like the biggest stress you have in your life every day, like this can be like fundamentally, it can be devastating for these people. But we don't see it like that because we've all lived harder lives. They do though. That's like the biggest thing for them. It's scary. It's gross.
The goal does seem to make people think that the reality that they live in is actually the oppressor.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly
what I'm saying.
So that way, and you can escape.
Your body is your oppressor.
Yeah, you can escape this oppression by taking control over your body and by coming out as a trans person, which is your true self, and that gives you some control over this oppression that you're experiencing by just existing. And you hear him say things like, I didn't ask to be born. That's one of the things that kids say it, but also that's something that the leftists have really globbed onto. They're like, well, you didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be born, so I should be able to do this, this, and this so I can break free of the oppression of this reality.
The number of the crazy liberals that have multiple kids that are non-binary or trans, like there's just no way that there isn't some sort of input and influence in the household.
All over Hollywood.
Yeah, because they want to be a victim, right? They don't want to be victors. It gives, like you said, they want to stand up to the oppressor. They want to be somebody that gets to say, I'm different. You know, I'm standing up to the man. And I got to tell you, this issue, okay, as a diehard Ron Paul libertarian, this was one of those issues that really got me to realize, you know what? I am going to go all in on Trump and Team Red, right? I get the debt. I get a lot of the things that happened under Trump 16. Obviously, I was not supportive of Biden. But when they are chopping off kids' private parts, when they are trying to tell these people that they should identify as something completely different, I mean, that's the time when you wake up and say, hey, listen, maybe it's time to fight against some of this radical stuff. This issue, though, when I came out and supported Trump, yeah, did I lose a couple friends and were people just rabid against Trump? Sure. When I come out on certain issues and people on the other side, yeah, I lose a couple friends. I have lost lifelong relationships over this issue just because I come out and say that telling a 9-year-old girl or a 9-year-old boy that they are not the gender that they were assigned at birth, that's Looney Tunes. That's crazy. And it's not a lot, but there are some people that really I was baffled by that I've lost relationships because they are just so bought into this idea that they get to choose and you're oppressing them.
I reject the concept of gender at all nowadays. I don't think that it's because what is it? It's your gender, it's your sex spirit.
Well, and even from a science perspective here, if you just cut all the social part of it out, people that go through these sex change surgeries, there's a lot of sexual dysfunction there. It causes sexual dysfunction where they no longer have access to their reproductive system that they were born with. That's a huge thing. We see a lot of the adults that have transitioned and gone through that whole process that they're unhappy with the end result. And we're seeing more and more people push back against that. Maybe they're deciding to detransition, but they caused a problem to their body. They're having issues with their body now, health problems. And so just from that aspect alone, I think we need to pump the brakes a little bit and be like, whoa, like these kids want to make these changes. Well, do they know what they're signing up for in terms of their health?
They can't.
No, they can't. There was also this thing that I think people forget about, which is Marsha Bowman, who was a trans doctor heading WPATH, which is the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, has done like a bunch of trans sex change surgeries and has done sex change surgeries on minors, including working on Jazz Jennings, and told Jazz Jennings, like, you're going to be so pretty you could do porn, right? So that's a great doctor to have.
That's a great aspiration, right?
Sure. But Bowman said
as if everybody that does porn is pretty. Come on.
But Bowman said in a talk, I think at Duke, that none of the patients he'd had who had, and I'm using wrong pronouns, I guess, but none of the patients that he'd had who had gone on boys who had gone on puberty blockers and then gone on to cross-sex hormones, none of them were ever capable of having an orgasm once they were adults. So none of them were ever capable of having like a fulfilling sexual relationship. And the reason that they put, and this is per WPATH also, the reason to have minors go on these drugs is so that they are better able to pass once they're adults. So the idea is once you're an adult, you will look more like that thing you wished you were when you were a child. That's the whole point of doing it young. You completely destroy sexual function, which means you're destroying adult relationships. Like, how are you going to have a fulfilling adult relationship or romantic relationship if you can't ever like achieve orgasm? Jazz Jennings doesn't know what an orgasm is.
I think that the two parts, that the grand manipulation is calling it care, gender affirming care, those words affirming and care, because I've had this conversation with a couple of boomers, my parents, and my mom's like straight up common sense, and my father's like, they need care, Ian. They need care. And it's like, I agree. Now you have to define what that means. Cutting their testicles off, cutting a 9-year-old's testicles off, cutting a 15-year-old's testicles off, cutting her boobs off. Is that care? Is that if they were elbowing their kid in the face, would that be care? That to cause a little bit of physical trauma if the kid was asking for it, would that be care?
Don't deny them their identity.
Would we go in there and seize the kid from the psycho abusive father? So that knowing that the affirming and care, because he's like a paramedic by trade. He's a fireman. There's not much greater than the hero of saving the vulnerable. And these people feel like that's what they're doing. But that now to tack it off is that people that have gone through this horror are now adults and they're speaking about it. And there's enough of them that they're a political force. So I have a lot of faith that, and I mean, you can see the HHS has already made a move on it.
Well, this administration's been good, but there's no guarantee that if the Democrats win again, the next administration or the next Democrat administration won't undo all this stuff and then have another insane man at that dresses like a woman at running HHS saying things like, oh, you need to affirm your child's gender and have mutilating surgery performed on them.
Yeah, and even with this gender affirming care, because sometimes they'll go the route of puberty blockers. You're like, well, you think you're confused. Let's just hold off puberty. If you hold off puberty, there's huge health effects that come along with that. You can't just block a child's puberty and be like, oh, well, let's let it go a few years, and then at 16, 18, whatever, then we'll, let their body do what it's going to do then. No, it leaves them with permanent changes. So you deciding to put your kids on puberty blockers is going to affect them for the rest of their life. And parents need to be aware of that and not just hear terms like gender affirming care. Like, we want our kids that are struggling to feel loved. We want them to feel like they have a place in this world, that they matter, that, suicide isn't an option. Like, these are all things that we want for these kids, but making decisions very quickly about, oh, we're going to do something that's going to affect your body for the rest of your life is so drastic.
There's no such thing as gender. It's your sex. Can't change it. Get over it. We're going to go to Super Chats and Rumble Rants. We're going to start off with Alpha Turkey says 100 fills could definitely take on a silverback. Granted, we might lose 38 fills. We still have 62 left and an unsubscribed to life gorilla.
How would you attack the gorilla if you were split into 100 pieces and you controlled them all?
With machine guns.
Well, no, if you had no weapons but your hands, how would you split up into groups? Would you all go in at once and try and dogpile the thing?
You'd have to do as much dogpiling as you can, because if you go in one at a time, the gorilla is going to kill you. Now, there might possibly be maybe there's a possibility that, I don't even think this is possible, but some people might make the argument that you'll tire the gorilla out before you exhaust the 100 people. I don't know that that's the case, because gorillas, they're incredibly strong, and the amount of effort they have to use to smash you into a puddle is probably minimal.
It depends on the size of the arena. If you're in a tight space like this, it's all happening at once. But also, the gorilla might get afraid. Morale should be included, because 100 fills would be pretty scary.
I can't tell you how much I talked to my son about this very scenario this week.
I don't think that there is any world in which multiple humans can take on a gorilla.
Yeah, he didn't think so either. He painted the scenario of the gorilla picking up one human like this and just like helicoptering.
But what if like a Phil jumped out of a bush and he's like, "Blah!" And then 3 more of them jumped out and he's like, "Blah!" Like the gorilla might be traumatized.
I think the gorilla has a better handle on guerrilla warfare than a bunch of Phils do, probably.
I think a silverback gorilla, a chimpanzee will tear you limb from limb, and a chimpanzee is not.
They go for your nuts.
Nearly as
genitals.
big as a.
They're vicious.
That's awesome.
They go right for it. Just so you know, if you ever come into the contact in the wild.
That's great.
Protect yourself.
Just great.
Yeah, not you personally.
So Shane H. Wilder says in the Rumble Rants, tomorrow the people of Cameron County, Texas will vote to turn Starbase from an unincorporated work town into a Texas city. That's really...
Is Elon Musk going to be the mayor?
I don't think so. But they're going to incorporate it, and it'll be Starbase, Texas.
Okay.
Let's see.
I thought he maybe needs another hat,
He's a busy guy, but apparently he's going to be stepping back from Doge and doing less work on Doge. He's not getting out of Doge.
Well, he only had like 130 days to do it.
Well, he's 100 days now. He's going to be only working like 1 day irregularly, so that way he can extend the work. because they've got kind of their marching orders and stuff. Perpetual Jonathan says, Phil, the PA guy at Ball Arena played 2 weeks last night, and then the Avalanche beat the Stars to force Game 7 tomorrow night. Coincidence? No, it's not. No, it was playing that song, and I'll take credit for that. Let's see. BMWC94 says he had surgery on his ankle and lost his job, just looking for help for my family for the time it'll be off. It's GoFundMe.com/FEEB9B90. Phoebe9B90.
Get well soon, man.
Yeah.
Ankles suck.
It does. Let's see. Some more super chats. Arsonist YouTube says, I think we should keep an eye on China. Apparently, students are protesting.
Really?
I don't know. I don't know if that's serious or not.
Students in China? Yeah. They'll shut that down real quick.
I've taken.
I don't
the
think that's
mindset-
even true, though.
Yeah, I don't see anything about that.
I've seen a lot from David Zhang. He's been talking about the Chinese the student protest, and it's been on a couple people that are like the Chinese uncensored people that are watching it. But whenever the Chinese protest around this time of year, we should pay attention.
I'm taking the mindset of I'm going to be really empathic and like compassion, just like on the level with the Chinese citizens and the Canadian citizens. Like, make them your friends, because it is possible that there will be Democratic Republic uprisings in other countries.
I don't think it's possible in China.
It's the most challenging country that it could happen in, for sure. It would be, but that doesn't mean it can't. And if it happened, it wouldn't happen from the outside. It would,
Yeah, it would be awesome to see. The CCP sucks, so.
They're pretty horrible, to be sure. K to the Swiss says, we love Courtney. So
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
And then Colin Rouse one says, Cliff, go Birds, Dallas sucks.
I thought you were going to say, Cliff, we hate Cliff. Go Birds. That's right, baby.
I wouldn't read that. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, go Eagles. Got the. It's been a good year. We got the Super Bowl. Got the White House back. I'm not tired of winning yet.
Isaac Vanderbilt says, I've been living off of ramen and bologna for 30 years. And then he goes on to say, you know who grocery prices don't affect? Singles. That's right. If you're single men, I think. Single guys. I think that women like to have more fun and experiment in the kitchen more than dudes do. Dudes are just like, whatever, stuff some ramen in the food hole and I'm good.
and more zucchini.
Zucchini is great.
That's true.
Raw or cooked.
I literally forgot about zucchini. I'm going to have to get some zucchini.
Rage LB says from Rumble Rants, need a shower after Phil tonight? Come chill. Rage LB on Rumble and at Rage LB3 on YouTube. I'm not sure exactly why you'd need a shower. I showered before work, and I haven't been particularly dirty, I don't think. So, Jacob Jones says, accidentally got myself in hot water by commenting on a left-wing page on Facebook, and everybody that was going on unhinged rants on me had either animal cartoons or AI profile pictures. Gulag immediately. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Gulags are necessary for those deviants. I was very much a libertarian minded person until all the trans and furry stuff, and I'm just like, well, maybe I am an authoritarian and we can just toss people in jail for no reason.
Well, I mean, for being a pedo furry, like that's
You
guys all have that experience though, where you do post something, every once in a while, and it strikes that chord, and all of a sudden, I don't know what the algorithm's doing, but it's just
somehow
feasting.
I try not to do it in text. I try to do it with my voice so they can hear the tone, because otherwise they go. It's just a cavalcade of black letters on a white background. It's like, God,
one time I said
themselves.
I said something like, it's this was last year. I said it's 2024, and we're still seeing people using the argument that men are paid more than women for the same jobs. And I mean, you would have thought
it's just not true.
You would have thought I went off the deep end.
Yeah, it's funny the things that bring out the liberals on social media.
And it's just sometimes it can be just innocuous things, and then the wrong person either retweets it or puts it in front of their audience, and then next thing you know, you're timeline, your mentions are just full of crazy leftists saying crazy leftist things.
I call that the Keith Olbermann special. If he starts pushing stuff, it is like rabid, just Looney Tunes coming after you.
Yeah, I think there was so much online from the 2024 primary that like conservatives were like really going back and forth with one another, that then finally when like a Democrat showed up to tell me that they didn't like what I was saying, I'm like, oh wow, I haven't seen one of these in a while. I'm like, how have you been? Oh, okay.
That was the White House incident with Zelensky. You know, when J.D. Vance and Trump really went after him. I mean, same thing. Like any comments on that, it was like these people just, that was the orange man bad moment of this year. Just they went wild.
That was a wild press conference.
Zelensky really stuck his neck out speaking it and doing it in English because that was that language barrier was sad. He was confused and like.
You think that's what it was?
Yeah.
He said, you're gonna know how this feels, you know?
Yeah, he did another interview more recently in Ukrainian or Russian. He did it in his native tongue, and I think he's just decided I'm not doing any more English.
No, I don't think he decided that. I think the backlash from that interview, you're probably right. He probably struggled a little bit, but I just think the backlash from that, they probably sat down and said, well, where do we go from here? I guess we're going to have to backtrack a little bit. Just my thoughts.
Let's see. Mac 12 says, hey, Phil, the Icon tools at Harbor Freight have a lifetime warranty. Well, it's good to know.
Got him.
Who wants to go return your stuff all the time though? That's kind of annoying. It's like, oh man, my hammer broke again.
I'm gonna stick with my DeWalt stuff. I like the DeWalt electric stuff. So.
I got to get a good chainsaw. Got any good ones?
Steel is a good chainsaw.
This company's called Steel?
Steel. It's not it's Stihl. It's STIHL. It's a German company.
They make good knives too, the Germans.
Yeah, they do.
Germans and Japanese know what they're doing.
Yeah, that folded steel. Like
9.
Damascus steel.
9.
I don't know if that's German or Japanese, though.
9 is German. It's also a number. Red Muskrat says, I'm a machinist by trade, but I love buying old comps and cutting into them. Tinkering is my bag. I'm not sure what a comp is.
Computer?
Computer? Maybe. Cutting into them and seeing what's, I guess.
Cutting into them circuit boards?
Yeah, maybe. Joel Jamal says, hi from Australia. It's great to see Cliff Maloney on the show. Much love from Turning Point, Australia. Wish us luck in our elections today. You're having elections. I hope that the furthest right-wingers that are running win, because then you might get some people that are kind of centrist.
Joel is doing the Lord's work. God bless him. Good luck to him. I always laugh, but when people are trying to kind of get things moving in some of these areas where they're really seen as not just the resistance, but I mean, it's, to try to organize in a place like that. But he's doubling down, doing good things. So thanks for the shout out, Joel.
Let's see. Sergeant Buck says there are 2 ways to fix a printer: a driver reinstall or driving a wedge. Just throw that garbage out and buy a new one.
I'm with Libby on this. I think I'm going to have to stop buying the $40 printers and there's got to be like an $800 printer out there that might work for a couple years. Doesn't exist?
I don't think so. Not like for home use.
Yeah. If you
have
get
to buy,
an
like, the
office printer,
Kyocera,
they have some nice ones.
Rico, whatever.
My last office printer was great, and I was the printer whisperer. If it ever broke, they came to me before we called IT.
That's
kick
good.
it?
That's a good spot to be in. They need you.
Did the hitting work, kicking it?
That was not what I normally went with first.
No. Well, to each his own. TC Blair
I
says,
still love that scene in Office Space when they take the fax machine out. Yeah.
I will say that does work for pickle jars, though. If you're ever trying to open a pickle jar and you can't get it, if you like hit it on the floor a few times in a few different places, it's actually way easier to open.
Yeah, that works.
TC Blair says, I live in the county where the gang attack happened. We have friends and family who work there. Keep us in Southwest Virginia in your prayers, folks. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely, we
Prayers
will.
up.
Yeah, it's a terrible thing. And like I said, we should send them all out. Just get them out of here. There's no reason for us to have to deal with them.
We just don't want them to come back. We can't have them coming back.
We gotta
luckily, the
secure that
border's
border.
closed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Billdozer74 says Phil's libertarian voice is sexy. It's not intended to be, but Jimmy B. Good said they had a reason to go to war with Iraq. Saddam stopped using dollars to sell his oil to stick it to us, and the banksters don't allow that. Mess with the banksters' money and they kill you. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if that's the case because at least the first Iraq War, not the second Iraq War, but the first Iraq War, I really do think that the Saudis had a lot to do with it. The fact that Iraq invaded Kuwait and said, okay, we're coming in here. The Saudis were like, this kind of makes us nervous, so maybe we should have a U.S. base, which is a terrible idea, but to have a U.S. base in Saudi Arabia. But they really, I think they did want the U.S. to kind of ensure that the Saudi royal family would not be, hung up from bridges, which is what tends to happen to monarchs that lose power. So, but yeah. Duwinde says, big L on your opinion on Apple, Phil. I don't think you're making the argument you think you're making. I do think that I'm making the argument I think I'm making. I like Apple products to stay the way that I would like Apple products to stay the way they are. I'm comfortable with the fact that if I want to fix an Apple product, I have to go back to the Apple store. Or don't have to, but I go back to the Apple store to get the warranty repair. And I don't like the idea of outside companies messing around with Apple because I like the way Apple products work generally, except for the brightness on my phone. I just want it to stay bright when I turn it. Leave it bright. Don't ever turn it down, ever. Stop adjusting it. I turn it up for a reason. I never, ever, ever want you to turn it down.
I think he might be talking about the idea that it's a more secure product because they have it all done in their factory without like external, but it might be more vulnerable if it's more proprietary.
Why?
Because no one really knows what they're doing. So if you have access to the parts,
are you saying Apple doesn't know what they're doing?
Oh, they know what they're doing.
Okay.
But they don't have to tell people necessarily.
Yeah.
So
I think there is one regard that Apple doesn't know what they're doing. I really want my headphone jack back. That's still a gripe for me. I like wired headphones, and I want it back.
You were a boomer.
I always thought Apple, it's weird how they'll take parts away because they're like, they just don't need that anymore. I'm like, give me 6 USBs on my computer. Like, don't take them away.
I do think they could probably use more USBs. I think my laptop has 3.
They assume you'll buy a peripheral that plugs in that gives you like 8 USBs.
Yeah, I'm not totally against that. I do like the idea of everything being USB-C now.
Oh my God, it's so great.
I do like that.
That's like the world coming together.
That was the European Union did that. That's what
No. I didn't mean that I wanted them to make the connections. I just like that. I like the fact that the USB-Cs are smaller and they're more convenient than USB-Bs.
You can flip them upside down and they still plug in. That's so huge.
Well, it was Europe who said like, you can't just have a million different kinds of chargers all the time. You can't be changing this all the time.
And I was against that too.
Yeah.
I hated the idea. I was like, don't mess with my Apple products. I don't want you European Union messing with my Apple products because I like the way my Apple products work. And I don't want governments involved saying you have to make them work this way because usually that means they make them work
worse.
Yeah, I've had worse luck with USB-C than Lightning, though, at least so far. When it comes to audio stuff, because it has something to do with with Lightning, it's easier for things to like go out and come back in versus with USB-C, the way that Apple has done it right now. Like I said, for auditory things, it's not working so great if you want to be wired in.
Wow. I didn't know that. So let's see. Now we're moving around. Ron says, Canada won't even let Americans with DUI convictions into the country, yet we have Dems ending the worst of the worst, defending the worst of the worst here. I agree. It is crazy. In Canada, they're actually very, very strict, and it's been a pain in the butt when it comes to touring bans because it's frequent.
Are there a fair number of DUIs and touring bands?
Not maybe not in the bands themselves, but when it comes to crew, I mean,
sure,
and of course the crew should know, they should look at the routing and they should say, okay, you're going to Canada, I have a DUI, I can't do this tour, but they don't, and then you have to figure it out at the border, and it's a pain in the butt, and so, but yes, Canada is very, very strict when it comes to who's allowed, which Americans are allowed in. If you're not an American, I hear it's fairly easy to get into Canada for numerous reasons. But if you've got a DUI, look out. So Let's see here. What do we got? The Emperor's Champion said, if attempting to impeach the president on behalf of MS-13 is not treason, then I don't know what is. I think that doesn't count as treason because treason has a specific meaning, and it's I think it's in wartime is when it's actually treason. It might be sedition.
That's sedition, right?
Yeah, this might be sedition. Might be a more accurate phrase, but it is definitely counter to what is best for the American people. So, Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says Ian's lying. We played DC Adventures just last week.
I love that guy.
Raymond
Why does
G.
he say I'm lying?
Because, well, did you listen?
No, I didn't play DC Adventures with Raymond. Is it fun, Raymond? I never even heard of it
I
before.
don't know.
No, I love Raymond.
Should
Raymond's
I
the
do this?
best.
Should I do this one?
That's a pretty good one. It's your choice, man.
Pokemon said Phil drives a trans, ma'am. I don't.
No, he doesn't. Do you leak what you drive for real?
What?
Do you leak what you actually drive? What you actually drive?
I've said that I drive a Tesla.
Yeah, it's a sick Tesla.
Thank you very much.
I realized Raymond was talking about when we were pretending to be Wonder Woman and Spider-Man down in the basement last week.
What?
That was a sight.
Did I say that out loud?
Oh man. Sean Turner, Scene and Cheese, says anyone bring up the cartels guys caught smuggling 180,000 rounds of CO. CO equals Neo CA, but they get minimum trucks to the CO Supermax to El Chapo or to give to TDA. I think he's talking about 180,000 rounds of 308. I'm not sure if they were. There were 30 cal rounds, but that's a lot of suppressive fire if they're firing from a full auto belt-fed machine gun, which the cartels absolutely have. And I haven't heard anything more about it though. So
Go back to that. Was he saying Colorado and calling Colorado Neo California?
yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, Colorado equals Neo California.
Got it.
Bet they get minimum. They get minimum trucks to the Colorado Supermax to get El Chapo or give to TDA. I think that they're probably going to go out of the country, and those rounds will be used to fight the governments in South America, or maybe fight the Mexican government. But yeah, it's a lot of bullets, man. You guys don't need, let's see, Tim Neal says, you guys don't need more USBs. Each USB port will run 100 plus devices. You have to have powered USB banks to run more than 3. Well, it's an extra piece of equipment that a lot of people don't really want to buy.
Right, exactly.
Which, and I can't say that I blame them,
Thunderbolt, is that what it's called? The new technology, Thunderbolt technology? It's like
It's a
super
couple years old.
But like Thunderbolt 4, I think, or 5 they're up to now.
I think so, something like that.
Ridiculous. It's almost as fast as HDMI, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, I don't know.
And it's a USB-C plug. Wow.
Let's see. Red Muskrat says, I'm a machinist by trade, but I already read that one. What do we got here?
Let's see this one.
Which one? Oh, okay. Jammy Brocodile says, boomers are afraid of Trump because they still get their news from TV. They should get online to find out what's actually going on. I mean, look, you can find, information that's critical or outlets that are just as critical of Trump on the internet as if you watch regular TV. Now, granted, people that expect the TV stations to tell them the truth. Like if you're a boomer and you remember the days when it was just 3 news stations and Cronkite was like, and that's the way it is. It makes sense why you would still kind of have that inclination, but I don't think that just getting on the internet is the solution, because people will still be looking for, actually it might even be worse because they're looking for confirmation of the things they kind of already believe. And if they believe that Trump's a bad guy,
Well, it was wild when you looked at the post-election polling of Trump moved to the right with every single demographic except the boomers. And so I really did a deep dive trying to understand. I think that's a good argument, which is they still get traditional media. I think a better argument is they aren't as impacted by some of the Biden policies when it comes to the economy, right? They're kind of hitting that retirement age. Life is good. things are okay. People vote to kind of keep things okay. And I think of all the groups, it's a mix of them getting traditional media, but I think they just weren't impacted as much as everybody else. But it's the only, which is, kudos to Trump, is the only group that didn't move to the right.
Yeah, I mean, wait, you said kudos to Trump for
that every other group moved to the right.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that that's because they're more inclined to they're not set in their ways, honestly. Like if you're a boomer and you kind of have an opinion of Donald Trump, I don't know what it's going to take to move you, and they're certainly not going to go out and look for information that's contrary to what their preconceived notions are.
You can get through if you talk about the liberal economic order and they're smart and they actually care. They'll listen. I mean, I've had some experience explaining like global technocratic banking and how they've been gutting our country for 100 years. And they're like, okay, the Kennedy assassination.
Like, yeah, that's us.
If you go through to talk about the Kennedy assassination with them, the boomers, they're like, oh yeah, CIA got you. Yes, yes, yes.
Well, and more of them already own their houses though, too.
Sure.
That could be a really big factor.
Mr. That One Guy says, hey team, just wanted to share information. Previous guest Angry Cops, Richard High, great dude. You should subscribe to him on YouTube. The SVU detective has brought up Buffalo School District is hindering investigation into child abuse, abduction, and worse. They could use the attention. Yeah, you can watch the Unsubscribed podcast. Richard or Angry Cops went on there and outlined a lot of the really just disgusting behavior from the Buffalo School Department. And, he's an SVU cop, Special Victims Unit. This is literally right up his alley. And as soon as he basically put the Buffalo schools on blast, they started trying to discredit him and tried to discredit the podcast. Now, again, this is a special victims unit detective. This is what he does. And the school is trying to save face, and they're being selective with the wording. They're trying to imply that he's lying. They're not calling them lies. There's all kinds of just sus behavior by the Buffalo schools. I can't speak for anyone at the Post Millennial, but I know someone over there, and it'd be cool if you guys covered it.
I actually was looking at YouTube about that the other day.
Yeah.
But yeah, we haven't covered it yet.
Rich is a great dude. So
yeah, I met him the other night on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's really he's a great guy. He's him and actually all the guys on the Unsub podcast, Eli, Donut,
Donut,
the Fat Electrician, they're all great dudes. So
Donut is such a good nickname.
Donut Operator.
That's a great nickname.
Joey Bag of Donuts. Yeah.
So good.
So, yeah, you should subscribe to the Unsubscribed podcast. Let's see. Isaac Vanderbilt says repeal the 19th. It just makes sense. How do you feel about that, Libby?
What was that?
Isaac Vanderbilt says repeal the 19th. It just makes sense.
Oh, that's just so stupid.
Oh, boy.
Just dumb.
Adam Brinman said, I haven't looked at the actual adjusted numbers, but other than the COVID rebound, all Biden's jobs reports are after reactions almost all negligible, minimal. That's my understanding as well. Like the Biden administration made a big deal about the jobs that they had, during their administration, but the whole country was shut down largely when he took office. And so the idea that he actually created these jobs, it was just these places of business opening back up because we realized that they could, that it was time for the restrictions to end.
Or sometimes someone would pick up 2 part-time jobs because they couldn't find a full-time job, and then they list it as 2 jobs.
Yeah.
And also the jobs could be redundant. Like they'll hire someone to dig a hole and then hire someone to fill the hole up just so that people stay busy and the Federal Reserve can keep getting their money at interest.
Like with Works Progress, there was stuff like that.
Yeah.
Works Progress Administration under FDR. There was stuff like that.
Just dig a hole and...
Yeah, I mean, they're always going to spin it, right? It's like, hey, what number can we take? And I love, though, when there are certain things under Biden that the Democrats really championed. And now if it's better under Trump, it's like, what do we do now? But that's why I say it's always about, okay, where are they when it comes time to vote? And if they have the job and they're feeling good, great. But they're always going to just take these numbers and run with them.
yeah, I do think that there's going to be as much twisting of the information as possible. So, Yaquilin, I can't even pronounce that. Yaquindia. There we go. Says gender ideology is the most sexist thing ever. I mean, maybe, but it's all BS anyways. So, Grits 15 years says, I have yet to meet a trans person that doesn't exhibit an incomprehensible level of self-loathing. I mean, I think that I've met a couple that are fairly reasonable. I mean, Blair White is fairly reasonable.
Blair's always recently was like, I don't even know if I'm trans. I think I'm a cross-dresser. Like Blair's.
I mean,
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, Blair's awesome, dude.
I
love that guy. He's the fucking man.
Lucy Fear says, my friend is making a daily podcast telling the story of 250 years of America across 250 episodes. Premieres July 4th, 2025. Ends July 4th, 2026. Go give him a follow at 250 Years of USA on X. Go give him a follow, guys.
Me and Ian were just talking in the beginning before the show about what was that called? The Great War, I think.
Yeah.
From like 10
on YouTube.
Yes, correct. Like so if it's 250 episodes like that each year, that's so sick. I love stuff like that. Pick
up The Great War. If you want to understand why modern war is basically the devil incarnate, you do not want modern war, look at The Great War. We got to keep World War I in mind because they didn't understand. But just like we have drones right now, these are the machine guns of the modern age. You don't understand what you're about to go up against. And they did a week by week everywhere from 2014 to 18. Every week they would say, this is what happened in the week of 1914, 100 years ago. It's fascinating. And just the death, millions and millions and millions and millions, just from the machine guns. But then you take trench foot and all these other horrific, just the chaos of the explosions, that way that can traumatize and destroy a human body.
My name is Yeet, says Ian, we miss you on the 7 Days server.
My name is Yeet. There was too much lag. If it's been resolved, though, that's a good thing.
All right, smash the like button, share the show with your friends, go to rumble.com, become a member, and you can sign up for the after show. You can catch the uncensored after show, and then if you go to timcast.com, you can join our Discord, and then you can call in and talk to us. But not tonight, because tonight's Friday. So, one more? What do we got? Kyle, the one from Kyle?
No, the left. This one here. Yeah.
Oh, God. Blue Debut says Phil's alter ego is the Philbertarian. No, it's not.
It's official.
No, it's not. I'm
libertarian, right?
I don't even call myself a libertarian anymore because they're unbelievable.
He's addressed it, guys. He's addressed it now, everybody. He's addressed it. All right, we'll leave it alone. He's addressed it.
All right. Anyways, so yeah, smash the like button, share the show with your friends. Go to timcast.com, sign up. You can join the Discord. Go to rumble.com and become a member so you can watch our after show, which is not happening tonight because it's Friday, but we will be back on Monday. So, Cliff, you want to shout anything out?
If you want to doze your state, let's talk. Hit me up on X at Maloney. Love the Timcast family. You guys are all great. Appreciate you having me.
Thanks so much for having me on, guys. If you want to find me over on X, it is at Courtney Knill. That's Knill. And right now I'm running for office. If you are someone who really cares about politics, think about running yourself. It's a lot of hard work. Don't let anyone tell you that it's going to be easy, but it's something very worthwhile. If you want to check out my campaign, it's knillforcitycouncil.com.
You guys follow me up on YouTube. I just did an interview with Richard Gage, who's the head of Architect. Well, he founded Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. And this guy's got thousands of architects and engineers across the world to diagnose the Twin Towers coming down in the physics involved with these buildings falling in near free fall speed. And he just laid out evidence for like an hour and a half. We went at it. It was great. So follow me on YouTube. Check out the video on YouTube. And X and Rumble. That's where you can find all my stuff at Ian Crossland. Zip.
I'm Libby Emmons. You can find me on X at Libby Emmons. And I would love if you would sign up for my newsletter, which comes out every day. You can do so at thepostmillennial.com/Libby. And this month we are sponsored by Merriweather Farms, which has been great. And I met them last year. I met the owner of Merriweather Farms on Timcast. I've been a customer ever since, and so I'm really honored that they're sponsoring the newsletter, and you should check it out.
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. I'm Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. You can check out my band, All That Remains, all over the internet, and catch Timcast clips throughout the weekend, and we will see you right here Monday.
We should shout out the Culture War. Are we still alive? Yep. I just hijacked the end of that phone call. Oh, good. The Culture War is tomorrow. Culture War Live.
Phone call.
Is it going to be broadcast? These are questions.
No, it'll be broadcast a week from tomorrow. So the live thing is tomorrow, and then they actually put it on the internet a week later.
So if you're coming, bless you. If not, pray for these people. They're going to have a wild romantic evening.
Yeah, Alex Stein is going to be there, and he's going to be yelling at people. I'm
Prime time. Pimp on a blimp.
Pimp on a blimp, man. With the big busted or big booty Latinas, you know. So
thank you, Phil. I defer to you and your graciousness. You're an excellent host.
So yeah, we'll catch you guys on Monday.